Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports, alongside our good friend and the most knowledgeable sports fan along the South Coast, Mr. Chris Santos. I am Paul Santos. Welcome in, welcome in. We are happy to be sponsored by our great list of sponsors here: Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street, Fall River, citywide glass with 3 locations to serve you: Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, and John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can get more information about him and his great career as a barrister at johnseedlaw.com. Well, first of all, Chris, how are we doing today?
I'm well, Paul. I'm in the mid-season right now with my tennis team, so I got a lot going on, practices, matches, a lot of things happening. So I'm a busy guy right now during my Stonehill College tennis career.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying that, and I'm sure you're doing a great job with your background in that sport. So good for you, and continue to enjoy it. I know you are.
Yeah, I am. It's a lot of fun.
All right, so let me get a little thing off my chest over here. Obviously,
Go ahead.
Tom Brady decided to retire, and this is going to
Yes.
be the final time. I think this is really going to be it for Tom Brady.
Okay.
And in a way, I feel bad because, God, how old was I when he started playing? I think I was in the tail end of my 30s, and now I'm 62 years old. I mean, he's been playing for 2 decades. What an unbelievable career. But there's a thing that I want to say, I think Brady has really shown that whole Patriot way thing, Patriot way thing, the Patriots, they do things differently than everybody else. I think that whole thing's a fraud. I really do. And I want to know what you think in the audience. Give us a call at 774 762 6234. Now, when I mentioned this to Chris, he said, wait a minute, you're going to need a little more explaining than this. Okay,
Yes.
well, I am going to explain that. They always say, well, those Bill Belichick teams, they don't blow games on special teams. Yes, they do. Those Bill Belichick teams, they don't take stupid penalties repeatedly over and over again. Yes, they do. The Bill Belichick teams, they don't make in-game dumb decisions. Like, remember that time when Cam Newton was there, that after scoring a big touchdown to get back in the game, he tries an onside kick, which 95% of the time fails under the current metric? Yeah, we make dumb decisions like that. How about letting the greatest quarterback of all time go? Oh, yeah, we make dumb decisions like that. How about making Cam Newton your number 1 quarterback? Basically going from the best quarterback in the league to the worst. Oh, yeah, we make dumb decisions like that. How about drafting N'Keal Harry in the first round? Other teams do that. We don't do that. Yes, we do. How about drafting Cole Strange in the first round? We don't do dumb things like that. Yes, we do. How about making Matt Patricia and Joe Judge the offensive coordinators with no experience right after they failed as head coaches? Other teams would do something stupid like that. The Patriots would never do something like that. Yes, we do. The Patriots are a 500 team without Tom Brady. That's what the numbers say. The Patriot way is a fraud with a capital F. What say you?
Well, what I say is you look at what Bill Belichick has done prior to New England, when he was with Cleveland, when he was with the Jets, all those things were not well for him. He had his issues. He had his problems. Now he comes to New England. They start out. They had some issues. They had some problems. Then he got to what he wanted, a fixture at quarterback, found the big piece of the puzzle to transfer this organization into the elite of teams out there in the NFL that he can say for 20 years, well, we weren't frauds. We could have been before that, even when I was coaching those other teams, and now after Tom has gone. But during that elite time, rare occasions did you see the things that you just talked about under Bill Belichick with Tom Brady together as a unit in the Patriots organization. So pretty impressive to go that far, Paul, not to be able to do all those things that you discussed during the time that Tom was there. Now, Tom obviously leaving, that was one of the things you talked about. Yeah, if I'm in that organization, I think I keep him to the end. I find a way. I'm a loyal guy. I think that's the way it should be. And I think Tom should have stayed as a Patriot throughout his career. It didn't work that way. And we've seen what's happened since then. Not only him, some other players who have fallen off and left too, and some of the other great key positions that are just not there for New England. And we've seen how it has declined. But again, it was 20 years of dominance. You cannot deny that. You cannot deny the GOAT. You can't deny 14 conference championships. You can't define 10 Super Bowls for this guy, 7 rings. He's done it all. So to see him maybe come back as a Patriot and sign a contract to say, hey, I'm a Patriot and retire, being in New England, that's what everybody around here wants. Will they get it? We don't know. But to me, I can't really say frauds at the time he was playing with Bill and what they did as a unit, because they were unstoppable.
Well, here's the thing about that whole Patriot way thing. Obviously, Belichick, Brady together, you have to give them the due. Okay, so what I stated was probably a little strong, but I will say this, right?
Mhm.
The sun and the moon and the stars lined up. They
Correct.
did. Because if you could take Belichick and you could take Brady and rewind them back 20 years and put them into the league now, I don't think they win 6 Super Bowls, right? First of all, the AFC East is no joke anymore. It was a joke for a long time. The Patriots were 6-0 before the season even started, right? And by the way, not only were they 6-0, but by winning that pathetic division and by having a season that started at 6-0 all the time, because that's, the 3 teams in the division were so bad, they had a great shot to not only get the bye, because remember, the top 2 got a bye then. Now it's only the top 1. Back then, the top 2 teams in the league in the conference that finished best got the bye. So they'd get the bye, they'd have the home game against a crappy team, and then they'd be in the AFC Championship game, right? So, there's no way that, these other players have that luxury, right? Okay, number 2, retiring as a Patriot. Look, when Belichick and Brady broke off, I was definitely, this is what I thought. I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought Brady, who was already in his 40s, was going to have a hard time keeping up. Why? Because history tells you that once you're a 40-year-old quarterback, you're going to fade away. Right? So I thought he was going to go somewhere, maybe kind of have the Joe Montana finish or a Joe Namath finish, maybe kind of a sad finish. That's what I thought. That's what I feared. I didn't want that for him. And I thought the Patriots were going to be, we can win with any quarterback. Just put in, whoever, Jimmy Garoppolo or somebody in there, and we'll do like San Francisco. We'll go with whoever, right? Oh, I couldn't have been more wrong, right? Brady left, wins the Super Bowl the next year. The Patriots been floundering ever since, after the embarrassing year with Cam Newton. And now they want him to come back and sign that one-day contract. As a Patriot fan, I'd love to see it, right? But I got to tell you, if I'm Tom Brady, I'm like, are you kidding me? I ain't doing that. You pushed me out of town. You had a chance for me to retire a Patriot, and you blew it. Why am I going to come? You think I'm going to go crawling back there now? I'd say I'd be polite. I'd be nice about it. And this isn't about the Patriot fans. But as far as the Patriot organization, and I'd be polite if they want to have a day for me and all this kind of stuff. But retire a Patriot? No. You had your chance and you rushed me out the door. You sent me packing. I'm a little edgy today, aren't I?
You're edgy today, Paul. You're a lot excited. Me personally, I think Tom should have called it quits, Paul, when he won that Super Bowl with Tampa. Because once that was over, he could have sat back, patted himself on the back and said, Bill who? What do you keep talking about, Bill and not me? Well, I did it under another regime. I did it with another team. I'm all set. It's me. I'm not have to worry about him. I've done what I needed to and ride off into the sunset. He decided to stay a little bit longer, but that's been the talk around here that, Kraft is hearing from the fans that they want Tom to sign, finish it up and go from there. Will that happen? You're probably right. It may not. But then again, he may have a change of heart. Who knows? It may get to him. We'll have to see what that's like. Definitely coming up soon and in the future.
All right. Give us a call here at 774-762-6234. We're stirring the pot a little bit today. Philip McDonald is watching. Thanks a lot, Phil. If you have a chance to give us a shout, you're always a good caller, but keep the comments coming as well. Philip McDonald, who is watching with us, says, Billy the Wizard of Foxborough, don't listen to the man behind the curtain. Cassandra Souza, watching today, says, hi, the Patriots are a great team, and Tom Brady is an even greater quarterback. Why are we talking bad about this subject? And then Philip McDonald says, it was a great run with success, but the background was not perfect. All right. Some different views there for sure.
Well, she's specifically talking about you, Paul, with your negativity right now and saying that the Patriots are frauds in this situation. But like I thought, that span, in my eyes, will never be duplicated again. Well, as long as I'm alive, I don't think that will happen. It was such a alignment of everything working perfect, as you said. And for that amount of time was so impressive that I don't think it will happen with anyone else. We've seen teams have great longevity and stick around for a long time, be involved in playoffs, but not the run like these 20 years brought in, and what it did, and how great this person was as a quarterback. In my eyes, the best of all time. I mean, I know there's, Peyton Manning's, there's Joe Montana's, there's, John Elway's, there's all kinds, Dan Marino, there's all kinds of players. But to me, what I've seen from my time of living, this guy had it all, and he did it every game, and it didn't matter what the stakes were, how the chips were down. This guy got the job done. Never mind all the rings, conference championships, Super Bowls, everything else all put together. So very classy, very interesting figure, not only on the field, off the field, and just had the camaraderie with his teammates, and a great leader, and probably one of his highest qualities, a great leader of all time.
No question about it. The way he called all the players, the Tampa Bay players, texted them the night before and told them how they were going to win the Super Bowl the next day. I mean, that like leadership stuff.
Yeah.
Boy, you can't overlook that. You're absolutely right. That is one of the higher qualities. And to be the greatest of all time, I agree with you. He's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
But it's not just, see, people like to count Super Bowls, right? Oh, he's got 7. That makes a great one. No. That's fine. Like, it takes the whole team to win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
But it's what he brought to help those teams get over the hump. It's not just counting the Super Bowls,
Oh, no, absolutely. And you watched it every week, how he could come back before the half and get some points on the board, come back at the end of the game, where you could actually sit there and say, he's going to do it again. We know it. And he would do it again every time. And it just kept happening and happening. You could say that about the other QBs, but not as frequent as he would do it time after time after time. And even when he left New England, he did the same thing with Tampa, and he would continue all the way up into even last year, and he still had some great games for them. So, stats can be up and down with that. He was still showing it at that age. Great longevity, great career, best of all time.
And of course, the 28-3. I mean, there wasn't a quarterback that could have. There's nobody that could have done that. And to get 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions. I mean, it's just unthinkable. But anyway, give us a shout. We always enjoy hearing from you. It's a lot of fun. 774-762-6234. Ryan is in Rochester. Hey, Ryan.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing good. But I will say, yesterday was a sad day for me because for me it hits a bit different because I was born in 2001, so figuratively and literally I kind of grew up with the guy as my quarterback, and I did root for him in Tampa because I was appreciative of everything that he had done with the Patriots for those past few years. Not past few years, for over the 20-year span. I only got into football in, I want to say, 2013 after I started playing Madden. But I'm talking about coming into the right place at the right time. All that winning that was going on. So I was appreciative of what he had done here. So wished him nothing but the best in Tampa Bay. And 2020 had to have been one of the more magical runs that I've seen. Doesn't quite beat 28-3 for me, but it was still something magical, that pandemic year. So it's I'm still sad that he went out like that, going 8-9, then getting blown out in the first round. I thought maybe he goes to like San Francisco or the Raiders and go scorched earth again. But it'll be a little bit of an adjustment. But hey, I'll get used to it. Great career. I can't wait to see him get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Ryan, I think the I think the mind, I think the leadership, all still there for Tom. And we've seen it with stats. Even this last year with that record, he was still a top 10 in there in all statistics. I think it's more now of the movement. Got to be careful not getting hit, more fragile as the age steps up, to sit back and say, hey, whoa. And I saw that a lot more this year, a lot more getting rid of the ball quickly, a lot more turtling, covering up fast, just getting out of the way, compared to some other times when he hung around in the pocket a lot longer. I have no problem whatsoever with what he's doing. I still say it should have been the year after he won the Tampa Super Bowl, and he could have turned to everybody and said, Bill who? And then, he could have laughed it off, and they would have went off to the sunset. But he did it his way, and that's the key. He did it the way he wanted to do it, and he's still happy with it. I'm curious to see if he stays in football, whether he's in analysis, gets into coaching, whatever it is, or will he just kind of stay off to the side and just say, hey, I don't need it anymore. I got other things to preoccupy my time with.
Well, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that Fox deal's still sitting there. So, hopefully he can come in and have like a Tony Romo type start, and hopefully that he doesn't fall off like people think Tony Romo has. I don't quite have a problem with it, but a lot of people hate him now. But either way, seeing him as a coach would be cool. But I think he said years ago that he's probably not going to end up coaching. But I like to see him as like a coordinator or a quarterbacks coach or something like that. That'd be cool. But it'll be interesting to see him up in the booth, to say the least. And it's going to be an adjustment.
Hey, what do you think about this question I have out there about, did Brady prove that the Patriot way was kind of fraudulent? I mean, if you look at the way things happen, I mean, when Brady and Belichick went their separate ways, did you think it was going to go the way that it went?
I didn't think it was going to go quite as badly, because I'll be the first to. I was kind of like 50-50 on it, because I figured Brady would be good, and the path would still be right there. But no, I did not see it going as badly as it did, one with the Cam Newton year, and two the way that it has now. But I mean, I guess you could say it's fraudulent in the fact that it's not all just the coaches in the system and all that. What this kind of run has seemed to shown is that you still need players in order to do that, and we just so happen to have like the greatest player, at least at his position in the history of the game, to kind of cover up some of the errors and stuff. So what I'm hoping that in the end, what this does is kind of puts a spark under us to say, okay, let's go get more good players. Let's get actual talent, which to this point hasn't happened yet, but hopefully with like the salary cap going up and such, we can actually go ahead and do that, because we do need players.
Bill still thinks that he can win with we'll just throw these guys in as offensive coordinator, and we can just get players that are C+, B-. No, you can't. You have to have guys like Charlie Weiss and some of these other guys, and Scott Meckier, and you have to have these great players that are all in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you look at all the Hall of Famers that the Patriots have. They're going in that will go in from these great teams. You have to have that. You can't win with average players that you just coach up. And I think that Bill has a little bit of arrogance in that regard.
I think so, absolutely. And you don't need to be, San Francisco when it comes to talent, but you got to have some.
All right, what does Chris think?
Well, think about those years, Paul and Ryan. Would you say that everyone they drafted coming out of college was a complete stud? I would say no to that, and I would say there were times that Bill took them and got the best ability in that position for that player, and he did some coaching up. And I think it was a combination of both, to be able to have the great ones, but be able to have some players that were, hey, this guy I can really work with and be even better coming out of college. Because I don't think everybody he drafted was a stud first round pick, and you had to find ways to get those guys in the 5th, 6th, and 7th and make the best what you could of them. And he did that, but it gelled all together. And it's led by, obviously, the best position in football, which is the quarterback. And when Tom left, it's what's going to take his place. Well, we know it's not going to be another Tom. So we already know we're declining in that role. Now we got to pick it up in other places as well as the quarterback position until we get what we need for our team to be that leader again and continue to roll. So I think it's a combination where Bill did some fine work at times. And then obviously they made some bad decisions in drafts, or maybe they thought somebody was going to be a free agent they could use, and really they couldn't. So, all teams do that, and that's how it goes. So I give credit where credit is due. I think Bill has done some great things during those 20 years to make them what they were and how they implemented that defense, because at times that defense was something special.
I can agree with that. Yeah, like I'm not trying to discredit Bill or anything. I think he's still one of the best, if not the greatest coach of all time.
Hi, stand by, please, Butch.
Mm-hmm. The bad decisions at the draft, like almost the entirety of the 2019 draft, not the 2019 draft, and the 2018 draft, those two back-to-back years, perfect examples of that. You could, who could you have had? You could have had guys like DK Metcalf and Darius Leonard. What do you do in those two drafts? You go Isaiah Wynn, Sony Michel, and then in 2019 you go N'Keal Harry.
Right. But I will give Chris some credit. When you look back over the years, there's been some undrafted players.
Yes.
It turned out to be. I think was Edelman one of them. I'm trying to think.
Jules was a 7th-round pick as quarterback that got converted to a slot receiver, and then Malcolm Butler, I think, was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for your awesome contribution to our show as usual. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, let's go to Phil in, I think, New Bedford. Hello.
Yeah, still New Bedford, guys.
Yes.
What's going on?
It's been a while. Always a pleasure. My life's been really crazy, but I'm back on track.
Good. Glad to hear it.
There, about the curtain thing. What they did was amazing. It's never gonna, like Chris said, I just don't see it, even when we're gone. But there were prices to be paid. Now, in practical terms, the last 5 years, I don't believe when Bill says do right for the team, he's made decisions that make him comfortable, that he feels good about, and instead he's turned guys away who used to have respect for him even when they were in the team. If I was with Mac Jones this year, bringing in those two numble nuts, no, it just wasn't going to work. It was set up for failure.
So, but if you look back over the years, I think there's been some numbskull decisions that we just didn't notice because Brady was there and he kind of held things together, and you know what I mean.
All the success, sure.
Yeah. So is that statement too strong that Brady kind of proved the Patriot way probably wasn't what we thought it was?
Yeah, I agree. And
right.
Think about how his whole personality just released once he got to Tampa. Like, woof, I don't have to be that perfect person anymore. I don't have to be in line with everything. I have that Patriot way. It was crumbling. So
it's too bad. Like, he could have been like, you see like Derek Jeter. Like, can you imagine Derek Jeter? Derek Jeter. Why did I say that? I just came out. Derek Jeter wearing a uniform that wasn't the pinstripes. I mean, it's unthinkable. That's the way it should have been for Brady. In fact, even if they kept Brady and the team kind of faded and they weren't as good the last couple of years, let's just say that that's what happened. So what? Keep him anyway.
That investment.
Keep him anyway.
Would have been the investment and the respect shown to him.
Yeah, and it would have been great for the fans too. Chris, that's the thing that jumps out at me is what could have been. What could have been? He could have gone off in the sunset like this great, a Ted Williams kind of a thing that you're on the same team your whole career. That's it.
Especially with a guy, Paul, that would take a pay cut for you.
Yeah,
would make things better for his team. Would get other guys pumped up and sit back and say, "Hey, just bring me what you got. I'm going to work with this guy. We'll get better. We'll go out there and give it everything we got." And then that was something that you sat back and said, "Hey, wow, that's pretty special when you got the greatest player of all time and the guy's willing to take a pay cut to stay on your team and be loyal to Bill, to Kraft, to the organization." That was pretty special in my eyes when I saw some of that during his prime years.
You think Brady should retire as a Patriot?
No. Not the way they treated him on the way out the door.
Well, you and I have seen
and pushed him out the door.
You and I have seen perfectly today.
hey, fly, Philly, fly.
Hey, all right. Thanks a lot for the call.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let's see if I can do this right.
That's a good one.
All right. I accidentally hung up on that next caller. So please call back 774-762-6234. Boy, we're really stirring the pot today here. And by the way,
Paul, pretty soon we're going to need a switchboard operator.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
We're going to have to get some people in there.
I think Decon was chiming in here. Glad to hear.
Decon was going to call up Decon. Call us back if that was you. I know you talked about Butch earlier. I don't know if he was on. He was.
Yeah, I'm trying to reconnect over here.
Okay. Yeah.
What about, do you agree with Phil and I on some of those points?
Yeah, I do in some ways. I also understand that Bill, he's a what's the word I'm looking for? He has his people that have been under him, Paul. And if these guys leave to try to better themselves, I think Bill still holds them in high standard and says, if I have a spot later on and they want to come back, I'll have them come back. They're my friends. They're my coaching staff. I want them. And I think that's what he thought with Patricia and Judge when they left Detroit and the Giants. And he said, hey, I know these guys. I'm going to take a shot with them, get them back here. Most of the teams know him. They know the coaching staff. They know the players. And so I think he took a chance in that way. Did it work out? No. Where's he going? He's going to Bill O'Brien, another high standard in the Patriot organization, where he's going to get somebody that he trusts and know, and that's what he's doing. So he tried it with those two guys. It failed, and he probably knows it failed, and now he's going in another direction.
All right. Well, Spear Christos is looking in today. Thank you very much. Spear Christos is he's a listener to Felgren Maz like myself. He's a fellow barrister.
Nice.
And we actually talked to him one time. So, Spear, if you're hanging in there, give us a call at 774-762-6234. Now, if you can call Felgren Maz, why can't you call Santos and Santos? That's the way I look at it. But he's got a comment here. He says that Brady went to a loaded Bucs team with many high-round picks.
Yep.
Quarterback away from a title. So it is true. It's not like, Brady went to some like downtrodden team that had no chance. He was also smart. He was smart. He looked around the league and went, okay, these guys right here, these are the guys I want right here.
Well, we talked about that, Paul. We talked about it with Ryan as well. And if I remember correctly, it was Winston who was the quarterback before Brady got there. And we talked about, okay, who's available in which teams. We talked about the Jets and said there's not enough talent there for him to go to the Jets. Then there was some other teams. And then we said, okay, what's Tampa got? Oh, let's take a look here. This running back, these wide receivers, these tight ends. Maybe I can get the grunt to come with me. Boom, here's my defense. So I totally agree with what he's saying. And we said it. He's going to go where we can win now. And that's what he jumped on, and that's what he did. Absolutely.
100%. He was very, very smart about that for sure. Yep. And as we said, Decon is watching. Thank you very much. And Spear Christos also says, no, Jules was a late pick out of Kent State.
Yep. Well, Ryan said 7th round, so I'd have to look that one up. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's a late round if that's true.
Let me grab this call before I accidentally hang up on them. Hello, you're on Santos on Sports.
Yeah, Spear Christos.
Spear, how are you, sir?
Good.
All right, turn your radio down.
I will.
Like they used to say, turn your audio down. All right, so this is the guy who calls Felgren Maz. So I figured, okay, he calls Felgren Maz. He can call Santos on Sports. How are you, first of all?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, thanks.
So I see that you're making a comment there that, hey, Brady's a great quarterback and all that, but he went to a loaded team.
He did. But it was interesting. I was watching yesterday, and they had a replay of the 2001 Super Bowl with St. Louis. And I was looking at Kurt Warner. He had a shoulder pads on him that looked like a linebacker these days. Holtz, the receivers, and the whole team, they were padded for combat. Right now, it's a track meet. The Indianapolis Colts, when they had Manning, decided that they were going to change the whole defense because they did have Manning, and they had a dome stadium, and they had track meet. And Belichick, through all the years, kept up with that. Now they had to go where the Colts couldn't beat them because of their defense. And now they're track meets, and Belichick kept up with that for 20 years. And he's had 3 years in trying to rebuild it, and everybody's smashing them. I mean, they lost on the last play to Buffalo 3 years ago when Allen was really coming along. And it takes time to rebuild. And I'm a firm believer that he'll pull it together. He'll pull it together.
So there is something to the Patriot way.
Absolutely. I'm just so indebted to Tom Brady because he was what infiltrated the Patriot way through the whole team when he came in. He was so competitive. Everybody wanted to be competitive with him. The Bucs had good teams, but they didn't have that initial innate competitiveness that Brady brought with it. And it was no surprise that they won. Although the game against Green Bay, Rodgers could have ran in a touchdown.
Yeah.
He didn't, he threw. And that would have knocked him right out. One play.
That's because that's because
everybody remembers that.
That's because Aaron doesn't have the it factor. Right. But anyway, let's get Chris's response.
Well, he started off with the greatest show on turf, Dick Vermeil, Kurt Warner, and the Rams. And, that was a situation there where the NFL was all about offense. And then, you move on from there and you talk about what the Brady factor on his offense, but how good that Patriot defense really was as well, that could create turnovers in the opponent zone, give the ball to Tom, 2 or 3 plays, they're in the end zone, and the next thing you know, Patriots are right back where they want to be, and they're leading the game or they're scoring late. And again, it lasted for that long. But the NFL changes in cycles. And sometimes, you have to realize as a coach, can I change with the times? I need to upgrade my coaching as well from 2000 to 2010 to 2020 and even now. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And for Bill to go that long is still pretty impressive for what he did from those years up to what he's attempting to do now. And it's still almost making the playoffs, which I know people want always instant success and win every year, but that just doesn't happen. But for him to see that they always competing and back in it every year, it's quite impressive as an organization.
Hey, Spear, do you think, like Chris does, that myself and some of the other Patriot fans around, we're just gotten like spoiled, we just like,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're just like so used to. I mean, during Tom Brady's career, 22 or 23 years, he went to the Super Bowl 10 times. That's almost half the time he was there. It's unbelievable.
He's got more Super Bowls than any franchise.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I was looking at an article, and they're still trying to knock him down. There was an article that said he's not the best Super Bowl quarterback. That was obviously Montana. He's not the best NFL quarterback in the season. That was Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was like 159 and 79, and Brady was 265 and 81. So Brady won 100 more games and only lost 2 less.
Yep.
This is just somebody, but they're always going to knock Brady too. It's going to go both ways.
Do you think he retires as a Patriot?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, we'll have to see if
didn't Carlton Fisk come back and retire as a Red Sox?
Well, sometimes they say time can heal some wounds, so maybe that's what'll happen. Hey, Spear, don't be a stranger. Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's go to Butch. You're on Santos on Sports. Is this Butch from Acushnet?
It is Butch from Acushnet.
Butch from Acushnet.
There is.
I'm sorry, I cut you off before by mistake.
Nah, that was me as well. I got a call on the other line that I had to take. So.
Wait a minute. You cut me off?
Well, it could have been.
Paul, what's more important? The call on the other line or Santos on Sports?
Well, that's like the the Godfather. Say, I cut you, I'll buy you out. No, I'll buy you out. No, I'll buy you out. Well, anyway, Butch, nice to hear from you. How are you?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good. What's on your mind?
I haven't been able to listen a whole lot, but I wanted to comment on the advertisement you had about the Patriot Way, the advertisement of the show, and my thoughts on that. I had some thoughts on that for a few years here.
Go ahead.
So I don't believe
and I've tried to confirm this, it's been hard, but I've never once heard Bill Belichick quote or say the words "the Patriot way." I believe that statement was made by the media,
Right.
and they use it, but I think Bill takes a lot of heat for that, and it's not part of his fiction. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't use it, and it has never used it as a way to explain anything. I think that maybe some former players may have, Teddy Bruschi when he's on the air, or
Well, it was Michael Hawley. Michael Hawley had the book.
Michael Hawley, The Patriot Way, which is a book that I read, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of unfair, and to call it, a fraud. Fraud's a powerful word. They were very, 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 very successful, and will go down in NFL history with. It could be saying winning ways, whether you agree with him or not. He won.
Well, let's do your job. Next man up. Blah blah blah.
All that stuff he said.
Yeah.
All of that. Absolutely.
All right. Let's see what Chris thinks.
No, but I think Butch is right in what was saying. The Patriot way. I have never heard him say that as well. There are some other things that they can bring out. That Bill will make statements. And of course, the media can blow that out of proportion as well as anybody. It doesn't have to be Bill. But at the same time, what Bill thinks and what Bill does and how he conducts himself is a way that the media just doesn't like. They don't like it. They never did like it. And they try to present more than what it is sometimes. So I agree with Butch. It gives Bill a bad rap. And I've talked about that with him before when he's been over my house, how the media actually treats Bill before, during, and after, and how all that comes in. And sometimes, yes, Bill puts that upon himself, but sometimes I think there's more to it than meets the eye, and the media tries to get more out of him than what he wants to give. That's his way. That's how he's always going to be. So, but he's never said, to my recollection, the Patriot way.
And I think too, hey, look, in any run, in any dynasty, at any time, you have to have a combination of, especially in football, great coaching. You have to have great players. You have to have great leaders like a Tom Brady and stuff like that. But you also have to have good fortune. I'm kind of like, I was always fascinated with mathematics and, random chance and so forth. Now, when the Patriots went on a lot of these runs, I keep going back to it. And I know the Patriot critics like to say the AFC East was a damn joke. So, I mean, some of these other teams and some of these other conferences and some of these other divisions, they didn't have that advantage. And so you give a great player and a great team that kind of an advantage. Obviously, they're going to capitalize. So I mean, not to criticize anybody. You have to play who's in front of you. But I do think that the Patriots had some of the moon and the stars and stuff like that kind of lined up for them.
I agree with that. And I want to thank you, Paul, for reminding me that was, in fact, the name of the book that Hawley wrote.
Yeah.
So, I think that may have been where the statement was born, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Right. The other thing, too, I think there was a stretch of time, especially during that second run of the dynasty, the second 3 times that they won, the league was like going through like, I don't know, it was like turning over from the Peyton Mannings and some of these other quarterbacks to this new crop, which hadn't emerged yet. But like now, let's say you could magically bring Brady back to the 21-year-old, put him back in the league. I think he wins a bunch of Super Bowls. I don't think there's any question about it. But now you got to get through Mahomes, and you got to get through Allen, and you got to get through Burrow, and you got to get through, there's a lot of new, young, emerging quarterbacks that you got to get through to get to the promised land. And I think it's harder.
Yeah, like I said, I think that, you can say what you want about Belichick or Brady, who was more important. Who cares? It took both of them and much more than just the 2 individuals to accomplish what that organization has accomplished. It just, it's an ultimate team game and coaching and everything, ownership, players.
So what do you think Brady's going to do? You think Brady's going to accept Bob Kraft's offer and say, I'm going to come back and sign a one-day contract?
That's a nice gesture is all it is from New England. It's a gesture. It really doesn't mean anything. I would think, he understands that it's a gesture. it's not a it's a good talking point for all these people to talk about. Well, he's not going to accept it. He's going to give him the finger and all this other stuff. But I think Tom Brady's a gentleman. I think he's a professional, and I think that Mr. Kraft it's a gesture. It's offering a nice gesture to come back. It's symbolic. It really means nothing, So I would think he would do it, but who knows?
All right, Butch. Well, thank you very much for calling, and please call again.
Okay, fair enough, fellas. Great job.
Thank you. All right, Butch from Acushnet here on Santos on Sports. Keep those calls coming at 774-762-6234. I had an inkling that the title of today's show was going to hit a little bit of a nerve there, which is why I put it up there. So we'll keep that in mind for the future. You got to just kind of go for something that you think somebody might have an opinion on. And, it is a debate that I think is going to go on for a long time. I think this coming year, right, of the Patriots, they still have a lot of good players there. They got a draft coming up. They could get some guys in free agency. They got Bill O'Brien in there. I mean, if you can't improve on 8 and 9, you know what I mean? I think this is really a big, big year for the whole Belichick Patriot way thing. Don't you think so?
Yeah, you would have to think on that. But I go back, Paul, to the years that Brady was playing in New England. I want you to tell me the teams that you thought, if you can remember, that would always make it to play New England. More of a lot of the same teams. Pittsburgh, the Raiders, Denver, Indy, always seemed to be those 4 in all the years that he played. Not a lot of parity. Not a lot of other teams. Where's your Clevelands? Where's your Cincinnati's then? Where were your Kansas City's then? You know what I'm saying? So it all comes around, goes around, and now some of them other teams are taking that next step up. They found their quarterbacks. They found some coaching. So things work out in that way. But the AFC with the Buffalo, occasionally the Jets made a push, occasionally, maybe to get to that, wild card spot. But, not much to other than the teams that I had just alluded to when New England was playing in that big run that they had. And that's who they were always kind of going up against. So you always had it like, all right, well, looks like it's going to be New England and Pittsburgh again, or New England in this one, and things like that. So, you didn't see it as a real league where anybody could come out of anywhere and really make a push, in my eyes, compared to a little bit more now where I think it's getting more teams involved and getting some more good football play to really sit back and say, well, there's a lot of teams that could do a lot of things this year.
Well, with Spear from Buzzards Bay was talking about how he's looking at the game from 2001 and how the game was different and the pads are all different. Yeah. Well, this kind of ties into the next caller, who is going to make the argument that Tom Brady is not the greatest quarterback of all time. There's another you think the debate would be over, but no. Yeah. This caller thinks it's Joe Montana, chops from the South End. What's going on?
That's right, Montana. Number 1, baby.
Now, wait a minute. Why do you think it's Joe Montana?
Well, I say Montana played in an era where, man, you could hit people, and you can't hit nobody no more. All these rules and regulations now, come on. It's outrageous. And football ain't what it used to be, though. You know it.
Right. Well, let me get Chris's thoughts on that because as much as I'm a Patriot guy and Chops is a San Francisco guy, and I always say, hey, Brady's the greatest quarterback, and he says Montana, we joke around about it and stuff like that. Chops does make a point because if Brady was playing back then, like in the Steve Grogan era, he would have got killed. I don't think he would have lasted as long. What do you think?
He would have lasted.
What do you think?
Well, obviously you can't compare eras when it comes to that because they weren't in the same era. So you have to go by from what you've seen from Joe, what you see from Tom. And I said this earlier, I'm not knocking Joe, Peyton, Dan, John. I think those guys were elite just as much as Tom. I just think Tom's consistency to do it game after game, year after year, for that long a period of time was the key for me. More than Joe, more than John, more than Dan, so forth and so on. Those guys may have better stats, better yardage, better arms, better this. But to me, it was how many times Tom did it. and he did it consistently week after week after week for that long of a time, compared to Joe, who, of course, Joe made some great finishes. We talk about the Dwight Clark catch. We talked about the Super Bowl against Cincinnati. I get it. I understand. He's right up there as well. I just think that Tom just had that more, that run of winning games at the end, big time, and even in Super Bowls as well as playoffs and regular season, more than those guys. And it just showed week by week that he was the guy.
Right.
So
but I will say this. I will say this.
this.
Right. Like Montana did have that it thing, though. I was like,
Yes, he did.
Chris and I
Absolutely.
like to talk about the it factor, right? And so does Tom Brady. Tom Brady has the it
So,
factor.
so did Elway. So did Manning.
Elway. But Manning, I don't know. I think in the
He had
playoffs,
some good wins.
a little shaky there. Aaron Rodgers, a little shaky in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But doesn't Chops make a point that if Joe Montana was playing now, he would have lasted longer? And so maybe he could have won more. And if Brady was playing back then, he would have taken a beating and he never would have lasted after 40.
Well, remember now with Tom, he had, if he, now, you're not just talking about Tom. You have to take Tom and you have to take the whole team, Paul, and put that team in that era with Montana's teams and so forth and so on. I can't just say take Tom and put Tom there, because now who's Tom playing with? Who's he throwing to? Who's blocking for him? Who's his defense? Who's his coach? I can't do it. You have to take the whole team. If I put that whole team there, I might sit back and say, hey, they're going to go up against, Lawrence Taylor and some of those other big guns. Yeah, I totally get that. But still, I'd have to take that more than anything else. As much as if I moved Montana up here, and as he got later on with Kansas City, you saw how he fell down a little bit. I know he got a little older as well, and he took some big hits too. So it's tough to really say era to era and play out one player to go in that particular thing, because to me, it's just not Tom. It's a full team.
I will say this too. I think 2 years ago, there was some rumors that Brady wanted to go to San Francisco and play because he grew up near San Francisco. So I have a feeling if Brady went over to San Francisco and won a Super Bowl, and maybe Chops' view might change just a little bit. I'm not sure about that. What do you think? You weren't saying don't come to San Francisco. You were saying, yeah, come to San Francisco.
Hey, I see a little. I don't know how true it is. Some things that San Francisco still wants them to come there.
Well, it's too late now.
I don't know, man. Money talks.
All right, Chops. Thanks very much.
Well, thanks, guys. Take it easy.
All right, Joe Montana. Joe Montana was. He for people that don't remember, he was kind of like the Tom Brady of that time. He was like that guy that you wanted him to have the ball in the clutch. He was like that clutch guy. So I remember that. But of course, those 4 Super Bowls, you can't. Somebody wins 4 Super Bowls is like, oh my God. Larry Bird won 3 championships. Bobby Orr only won 2 championships. Big Papi won 4. I mean, it's all like amazing. And now like Brady is just like on an island by himself with this, ridiculous amounts of these championships where he was a major contributor. So it is amazing. But the other thing too is we could break this all down. I know you're X's and O's guy. I'm kind of like a math guy, right? So, they always say like, well, you're making a debate. Like, let's say somebody says Joe Montana, like Chops, is the greatest quarterback. You can't really say that Brady is or isn't, right? They say, well, he won 7, he only won 4, so he wins. Well, you're taking out all the variables, of which there's 22 people on the field the whole time, right? So you're taking out all the variables. Under that theory, Yogi Berra is better than Babe Ruth, because Yogi Berra was on 11 championships and Babe Ruth had less championships. I mean,
and let's remember, Joe had the greatest wide receiver of all time to throw to. Don't forget that.
Or what about the greatest tight end of all time, Gronkowski?
Yeah. So again, you're having another position that goes with the combination,
right?
And you go, okay, well, what do we have now? It's 2 different positions, but absolutely, you could see that without Gronk, it would have been tougher. Without Jerry, it would have been tougher. So, good fortunes go your way, and it did for both of them. That's how the game rolls.
You talk about Brady's leadership qualities, and he's smart too, right? Yeah. When he went to Tampa Bay, he talks Gronkowski, and they're coming out of retirement. and they go into that Super Bowl, and Gronkowski has this like phenomenal game. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching this game. I'm watching Tom Brady celebrating. I'm watching Gronkowski spiking the ball in the end zone, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. You know, we could have got one more back here, but hey, we don't want to be greedy and all that. But it was just kind of funny to see Gronkowski spiking the ball in the end zone in the Tampa Bay uniform. I'm like, oh, something went terribly wrong here. Something went terribly sideways.
No, it's one of those where anybody would want to play for Tom Brady as much as probably anybody would want to play for Joe Montana back in that day as well. And the closeness between those guys and the longevity they had together. And now, hey, I'm going to retire, but yet I'm still young. And then Tom calls up and says, hey, guy, we got a team here. We're going to the Super Bowl. I can take this team. And it was a no-brainer for Gronk, as maybe some other guys would have done it as well. So that's what makes sports fun, for them to do what they can do at that elite level, even taking a year off, Paul, and still come back and be that competitive.
Well, I'm going to give you my 1-minute Tom Brady story. You know, during the course of time, raising a family, we really didn't get to a lot of Patriots games. In fact, and the prices were so ridiculous. I mean, I really hardly ever went, you know. So these years are all going by and everything else. So my younger son's like, hey, we got to get to a Patriot game. I'm like, yeah, I'll bring you to a Patriot game, you know. So finally, after all these years go by, I said, you know what? I'm just going to open up the wallet. I'm going to get these tickets right down, in the load section, looking right at this end zone, you know. And we're going to go to this game. So we go to the game. It's a beautiful 70-degree day. It's against Houston with Jordan Todman on the other team from Dartmouth and Deshaun Watson. So they go back and forth, up and down the field. So it gets to be the fourth quarter, and Deshaun Watson is driving Houston down the field to take the lead. And my son can tell me that I'm secretly rooting for Houston to take the lead. He goes, Daddy, you rooting for Houston? I said, yeah, I want them to take the lead so Brady can come down and win the game. That way we can say we saw it. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I want to see him take the lead. So Houston scores the lead, takes the lead with like 2 minutes left, right? So Brady goes trotting out there, boom, 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 goes out there, marches them down the freaking field, throws a touchdown game-winning pass in the end zone right in front of us, and the whole crowd goes wild and starts chanting, Brady, Brady, Brady. And that was the only game that me and my younger son went to during the Brady era. Boy, did we ever hit a grand slam on that one. Beautiful 70-degree day on top of that.
Yeah, mine was, it was at the Meadowlands, and I drove down, and I happened to be with my brother at that time, and Brady had made a comeback against the Giants, and they beat Eli Manning at the end of the game, and Brady had made a throw in the end zone. The window must have been this big, and the ball went right through it, and they caught it at the end of the game. And it really intrigued me because I had gone in the locker room afterwards with my brother who was working the game. And I stood off to the side, and Bill came in, did his thing. And then Tom came in, and they all start talking about the game and the leadership and what he thought about the Giants. And not one media person talked about the game-winning throw, that the window was this big and he fit it right through. I couldn't raise my hand fast enough, if I could, to ask a question, to say, hey, Tom, what did you see there? And how did you make that throw in that window? Because there was a linebacker, a safety, and a DB. You put it through all three and made that. Just to say, I couldn't say it, obviously, because I didn't work in the media. I was just there on the sidelines. But that was my Tom Brady story. And I was right in that end zone when he made that throw. And I saw the window that he had. It was quite impressive.
So what do you think the moral of the story is there? Was the moral of the story that the media had seen it so many times that they came to expect it? So therefore, they thought that the better question would be to go to another part of the game, not even talk about that part of the game. I mean, is that what it was? Could it even be?
You know what? It was really intriguing to me. And I almost wanted to ask other people, like, are you kidding me? You're not going to ask him what he saw. Was that your first read? Was that your third read? Was that your second? I mean, what was it? And then you looked off, and then you stepped to the side, and then you threw a beeline that you could actually see your receiver through those three guys make it through this and make that connect. Nothing said. It was just so overwhelming for me, as a sports guy, not to hear not one question about that particular play. It was really, really intriguing.
I think the other thing too about Brady, right? We talk about it, ad nauseum. We're going to hear about it too, I guess, for a while. But you talk about the athleticism, the fact that he comes through in the clutch, his leadership ability, and everything else. But what about his study habits? I would hear stories about he'd be there at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, looking at film, like just continuously looking at the tape, studying the tape, learning the tape. And that's why he made that famous comment later in his career. He's like, "Hey, I got the answers to the test." In other words, there was basically no defense that you can draw up that I haven't seen. Imagine that. That's incredible.
Well, and that's what the great ones do. They study their game as much as batters study pitches, what they think they're going to throw, how the ball moves, what they see the release point of the arm action, all that stuff. It's the same thing with Tom. It's what defense are you going to throw at me? If this is what you're throwing at me, this is what I'm going to do. If I look and see that, this is what am I going to do. I get up there, I'll call an audible, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's one of the great traits of Tom Brady. Not just leadership, but reading defenses time and time again, walking up from the huddle to the line of scrimmage. And remember, Paul, you only have like 5 to 10 seconds to do it.
Right. And if you do a zone, he's just going to shred you. If you go one-on-one, he's going to find the weak link. It's just like, what else can you come up with? But anyway, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can check out his website at johnseedlaw.com. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. Citywide Glass, 3 locations to serve you in Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton. And Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. And we'd like to thank our callers today. We had Ryan from Rochester, Spear from Buzzards Bay. We had Butch from Acushnet, Chops from the South End. So it's a lot of fun. Keep those comments coming.
Phil too.
And we had Phil McDonald. Yes, I'm sorry, Phil.
Yes, don't forget Phil.
Oh, okay, Phil from New Bedford. Sorry about that, Phil. And Phil and I are on the same wavelength too.
Yes, how can you forget that?
How can I forget that? So thank you very much. Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, listen, we got obviously a week or so before the Super Bowl. So no predictions right now. We'll do that on our next show. Maybe we can break that down a little bit. We can get people calling in, Paul, and give us what they think, maybe prediction of a score, who's going to win, Mahomes, Hurts, talk about the Eagles, talk about the Chiefs, and how they feel coming up in this next Super Bowl.
All right. Sounds like a lot of fun. We really enjoyed your contributions to our podcast. Thank you so much. And for those who called, feel free to call again. We'd love hearing from you. It makes a lot of fun for us and the other listeners to our podcast. For my partner, Mr. Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.